I don't consider myself a journalist. I'm just an old little old lady who likes to write about stuff.
She went from being a daughter of Italian immigrants who did not speak English, went into journalism, and how many journalists have worked for the same publication for over 7 decades? To me, that's just amazing.
My dad came in 1920, I believe. First, he was married in Italy to my mother, and she stayed in Italy until Grace was 8 years old. But he came over and lived with my aunt and uncle, who lived across the street from this house.
Just all of the wonderful stories that they've told about their childhood and growing up. On the west side of Owine, that's where all the Italian immigrants landed when they came to America, and because they worked for the railroad, the men did. And so there was a special bond between all of the community members because a lot of them did not speak English at all.
And I do remember my dad working at the railroad. We used to go up there on payday to get the check so my mother could go downtown and pay the bills.
The role of Italian heritage in my aunt's life cannot be overestimated. It is who she is. It's the fact that, like I was talking about, how important it is that she grew up to be a journalist when her parents didn't even speak English, and the fact that everything that she is, everything that she does is based on her upbringing, and the fact that she had such a loving relationship with her parents and she had 3 sisters, and it's just everything.
It's very important to us. We think that's the greatest thing in the world. We're very proud of our heritage.
My great-grandpa coming over here first, and then 10 years later, the rest of some of that family joining them, and just how they grew up as a family and how they really kept that culture going. How my grandma helped with the Italian American Heritage Day celebration. I know she and my great aunt Ann.
We were always involved in all of them. As we got older, of course, when we were young, they didn't even have it at that time. But when they started having them, yes, we were very, very involved in that. We have a lot of pictures for the Italian American doings. Lots of pictures, yes. And now that Kaye and I are the matriarchs, they always come to us when they're planning.
We have, ever since I was a little girl, we've all gotten together to make Italian pastries, and I don't know a lot about the language, although my aunt and my mom speak Italian all the time together and kind of leave the rest of us out. And I just think it's amazing that my aunt had 2 parents who spoke Italian, came over on a boat with no one in America to depend on or rely on, and they made a wonderful family and raised 4 daughters in America. I do think that her Italian heritage impacted her work ethic because they had to work so hard to overcome so many obstacles. And that's just part of who she is today. It wasn't easy for someone being, 16, 17 years old, walking into a newspaper and getting a job. And she did it, and she's been doing it for over 7 decades, which to me is just amazing.
I just always liked to write. And like I say, when I was in junior high, we had the flash staff. And then I moved to the high school, and I was on the journalism staff. And then Mr. Warren, the editor of the Register, asked for people to write stories for him for special editions. So I guess that's how I did it. And after graduation, I couldn't afford to go to college. And Mr. Warren asked me to stay on the staff, so I did. So that's how I ended up. I started out as Family Editor Society. We used to do weddings big time then. You had to have deadlines. If they didn't have their information in 3 days ahead of the wedding, then we had to cut it down. That's when they had real society sections.
When I was a little girl, I would read her wedding stories in the paper, and then I would write my own wedding stories so that I could emulate her. And even to this day, even though I went into radio instead of newspaper, she was still my inspiration for being a storyteller.
When I first started, I think my brother-in-law suggested, write about bits, bats, and bouquets. So he actually created the letterhead for me, and he worked for the Des Moines Register. So they had what you called a mold, and it, like I say, somewhere in the archives I have it. So that's how it came out. I could think of little bits to say, and if I didn't like somebody, I could give them a bat, and if I liked somebody, I could give them a bouquet. So it just stayed that way.
Kaye's work ethic, it's just constant. I mean, she's just constantly writing, and I don't know how she keeps coming up with subject matter for her column, because she, like I said, she's been doing it for, correct me if I'm wrong, 50-some years, I would guess. But anyway, every single week she has something in her column, and whether it's important or not, the people of Owine love reading it.
Well, my desk was right next to hers, and we were out in an open area here before we had offices, and she would get frustrated sometimes with the amount of work that we had, because in those days we used computers as typewriters. We didn't really use them as the way they're used today. So she'd be typing things and she'd get behind, or she'd make a mistake, and she'd say, "Oh, sweet Jesus." She was always praying at her desk. I think that was the fondest memories of hers. She would always use that expression. I was kind of taken aback by her quickness, I guess, her spunk. She really she was really inspirational. She kind of guided me along in my career as a writer. So she was just a great person. She remains a great friend today. So.
She was my inspiration growing up as to why I even wanted to get into the journalism field. For as long as I can remember, because she's been doing this for 70 years, so long before my time even, she was a journalist and a storyteller. And I just thought that it was so cool that I had this aunt who was writing all of the society news for the entire community. And she would write the wedding stories and the birth announcements, engagements, community happenings, who's going to lunch with whom, all the things now that you would think that is so trivial. But in a small town, it's everything. And I just loved that, and I thought, I want to tell stories when I get to be in my career as well.
I had memories of going with her to the register, and I really took for granted growing up, like, all the things that she did, like how involved she was, and I just thought it was normal. Everybody's grandma carried like a notepad in their purse.
I think it was her fortitude and energy, 52 years of never stopping. It was like nonstop to watch her work.
Way back when, I never thought writing this column would do something. No, I never thought that I would still be writing a column. In fact, when I went in the other day to talk to the managing editor, I said, "Anytime you want me to quit, just let me know." And she said, "Oh no, you got to keep writing." So we'll see how long it can go.
As far as her impact on the community, I would say it's the fact that so many people know her and think of her as an inspirational, not only a journalist, but just an inspirational person. She's so kind to everyone that she meets, and she's so friendly, and she's so inquisitive, which is such a great attribute for a journalist to have. She always wants to know why and what the reason is behind a story. And it's just such a great inspiration, not only to journalists, but to everyone in the community as well. And she's so caring about others.
Kaye is a legend in this town. She is an absolute legend. Because of her column and her ability to touch so many people and have so many people's name out there in the public, even if it's for 1 week, it's appreciated, and she's a wonderful person, and she's great for this community. She's an excellent cheerleader for this community. Very, very positive. The community loves Kaye. You cannot not love Kaye. It's just that simple. because of her column. You know, they expect it, they appreciate it. I think that's more than anything, is they really appreciate her column. And there's probably very few people in town that haven't had their name in the paper because of her, for one reason or another. And so to some people, that's a real thrill, you know, and as it should be. So
Kaye's relationship with the community is pretty solid. They know who she is and where she is and talk to her wherever she's at. And whenever she sees anybody she knows, well, it takes her longer to get home. She visits, and that's how she gets a lot of what she puts in the paper, I think, conversations with the people that she knows.
She's just a really great friend, and she's been my mentor for all the years that I've been here. She still is. We just have a great relationship, and I'm just so happy that she was here when I came here. I don't think I'd have been the reporter I am today without her influence.
I'd say it's her caring nature towards everybody. Yeah, not just me and her family, but yeah, she's very, very caring.
She's just likes to promote Owen and do what she can, even through the paper, through her column, you know, or whoever she talks to, you know. Just like I say, she knows everybody, so. But I would say that's how I think she's impacted Owen.
My greatest achievement in life is having my family and my friends, and the job has just been sort of a sideline. What else? What have I achieved? Nothing, really. Just being here, being on this earth, being able to be alive and active, and thank God.